today we're going to be creating an art project in my classroom that we are actually then going to photograph, and we are going to edit and do some really cool things with them in Photoshop. And we're even going to have the opportunity to learn a little bit about some animation. So I am going to show you guys a video of the project that you guys are going to be making. It might look a little something like this when you're done. Ooh. So I've made a really cool kind of galaxy background. You guys, as you guys are watching the video, you can kind of create whatever you want, just as long as you're using this same technique.
Remember, if there are any student names written down for being rude, disrespectful, and not following the instructions of the subs, it will be an automatic office referral, and you will have a detention with me. And don't forget, your next project is going to be a writing project instead. So, if you don't want to make me mad,
just follow the instructions. It's like so easy, guys. Just do it. Please.
Okay, so here's an example of editing the picture in Photoshop, and then we're actually going to be able to animate it a little bit, which you can see here. So let's get started. Okay, so to get started, what you guys are going to need is a piece of construction paper. This is a pretty small one. I have small ones and large ones. I'm going to move this camera up so you can see a little bit. This is a large piece of paper, so you're welcome to use the large pieces of paper if you want to. That just kind of depends and is up to you, okay? So I'm just going to use a small one here. You need to make sure that you have a sloppy copy underneath, which is on the cart where some of the materials are. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to start with this small black piece of paper. Then the next thing that you're going to need is a piece of cardstock paper. And that's also going to depend on what size you choose to use. If you are using a large size paper, go ahead and once again use a large size piece of the oak tag cardstock. But since I'm not using the large piece for this, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to use a small piece of paper, which is the same size as my construction paper. So this is a little bit thicker, and we're going to use this as a stencil. Okay? So this first thing that I'm going to do here is I am actually going to cut my stencil. So I'm going to do that just by going like this. So I'm going to be making kind of like a galaxy outer space one. You don't necessarily have to do that. You can use your own type of technique, create your own background using this same type of technique. If you want it to be a rainy background, show me how you can do that. Figure out how you can do that by cutting these shapes. So I have a couple of different edges here. As you can see, this one is like that. That one's the opposite side. It looks a little bit different, okay? Now, you could also go about this by actually tearing it, if you like that look better. That's going to create just a little bit of a different edge that you might like as well, okay? So have a couple of different options, okay? Now, since I'm going to be doing like a space scene, I'm going to cut a few different sizes of circles, and you will actually be able to, depending on your design, you might be able to use these later on, okay? So I know that's not a perfect circle, but you can trace something for that, and that'll work for this purpose here today. Okay, so I have those cut there. I'm going to move this stuff just a little bit. Okay, so the material that you're going to be using is going to be chalk. And there's a couple of different kinds of chalk that you guys can use. There's actually a lot of different varieties, so you will just need to choose one. And some of them have different colors. So like this one here, this is only a 12-pack of chalk, and it has bigger sticks but different colors. This one here, smaller pieces of chalk, but it has more variety of colors. And there's another kind too, so you're just gonna have to share these, okay? So to get started, you are going to use your stencils, and I'm going to just use kind of a combination of both of these chalks so you guys can see the different colors. So I'm going to start by, kind of want this to go across like this. I'm going to start with my colors, and since I'm making a space scene, I kind of want it to be like a galaxy. So I'm just going to start by lightly taking my chalk up against this stencil that I have created. Now I'm going to do this a couple of times with a couple of different colors. And when I'm doing this, I'm making sure that I am using colors that kind of blend well together, because eventually we will get this chalk blending together. So it is important that you have this sloppy copy underneath of it, otherwise your tables are going to be a mess. So I'm going to finish off here with a little bit of white.
And now I'm going to do that so I kind of have a cool line, but I'm going to start kind of just blending these colors together with my fingers.
Alright, so that doesn't look that exciting yet, but we'll get there, okay? So now I'm going to take a different line that I've created, and I'm going to go ahead and use one of those cut lines that's a little bit different shape, because I don't want to just use the same repeating shape over and over. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use a different combination of colors, and I might even want a longer piece here, so you might have to use a couple of different pieces of cardstock paper. So like I kind of want it to be this way, so I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to tear one that's a little bit longer there, okay? So I'm going to switch this out. Alright, so I'm going to have my design going this way this time. I'm going to start with some green. So this time I'm actually going to move it down a little bit, which I didn't do last time. Last time I moved above it. So this one's going to be just a little bit different. Alright, so now I'm getting some kind of cool color combinations happening, but the key thing is here, we don't want to cover up our entire background color, whatever one that is. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this, and I'm going to start working this direction a little bit, and maybe I'm going to repeat some of the colors that I've already used to kind of make it look like it belongs together a little bit, and then maybe I might use some new combinations as well. Okay, so this one I overlapped a little bit differently, where I left some more spaces. So just kind of experiment with a little bit more. And like if you don't, like I don't really like how that area looks right there. It's too symmetrical, so just go and continue to overlap. Use some of those different patterns that you have. Okay, so you can kind of just continue that, and you can kind of see that it's kind of starting to create some other stuff. You notice sometimes if you spread this out a little bit more, it'll kind of give a little bit of a cooler effect. So just play around with that a little bit. Sometimes the more you blend it, kind of the more realistic it's going to look. Just be careful about mixing colors that don't necessarily mix well together. So this could be another example of like if you're making the Northern Lights or something like that. So kind of think creatively. So I'm going to go ahead and actually use my circles a little bit. Even though I'm going to be adding some things in here digitally, I kind of just want to make this look as just vibrant as I can before I even do any editing. Okay, so experiment with using different shapes to kind of get your finalized pattern that you want to do. And remember, keep something in mind before. You don't necessarily need to do the galaxy type scene. But I'll show you a second part to this here in a second. I just want to quickly show you how using a different background color is going to change it significantly. So let's say you were kind of doing that same type of idea of using like a galaxy background, or maybe you wanted it to actually be like more of a sunset picture. You might want to use a different color or something like that. So for this, I'm actually going to kind of go with that theme of kind of a sunset. So I'm going to use oranges and reds and yellows. And it's going to look a little bit different. So just watch for a second. Okay, so here's another different scene that just saw me made that you can kind of do some of those same techniques by making some different things. So really get creative with it, really play around with it, and you probably won't finish it all in one class, and that's okay, because tomorrow we'll come take a look at it with a couple of other bonus things. Okay, so when you guys are done with your projects for the day, and if you have time to make two, if you have time to explore with other colors of backgrounds, that's fantastic. You need to make sure to put your chalk away, line them up neatly back in the compartments that they go in, okay? Lids on it. If you guys are gonna need your stencils for the next day, just go ahead and put your name on them and we'll collect them in a pile and you can use those for tomorrow, okay? But your actual sloppy copies need to go away. If you did get any chalk on the table, please use a wipe from over by the sink to get that done, okay? So now we're gonna take a little detour, little field trip. We are going to put these on the drying rack when we are done with them. And as you do this, remember, we start from the bottom and go up, okay? So I'm all the way, I'll turn it this way just for a sec so you can see a little bit. Okay. So from down here, just place them on here and you should be able to get, I don't know, if you're using small ones, quite a few of them on there, okay? So this is where you're going to put your drawings at the end of each class, okay? Okay, so here are the materials that you guys are going to be using. Here's the small pieces of construction paper. They obviously won't be sitting on this first table, but you guys get the idea. So lots of different colors that you can choose from: black, gray, blues, pinks, purples, and then the bigger versions you can use as well. Here is the digital art bin of supplies that you guys can use. These containers of paint and the toothbrushes, I put them all in one container, but you won't be using these until tomorrow, okay? But in here, these are your pieces of chalk. And then, oops, you also have your cardstock paper, which I'll have in the 2 sizes for you guys that you guys can use too, okay? So you guys can go ahead and get your materials and get started after the substitute gives you guys some instructions.